You assume that the mind can understand the soul. You treat awareness as a product of thinking, as though the one who analyzes can also perceive the source of analysis itself. Yet every attempt to define the soul becomes another idea, not direct knowing, but thought about knowing. Al-Ghazali confronted this illusion. He said the intellect is a noble tool, but it cannot grasp what transcends it. The mind observes, but it cannot observe the observer. The act of seeking blinds it to what it seeks. You begin to wonder whether the very process by which you try to know the soul, reasoning, explaining, defining, might be what conceals it. If the mind cannot reach the soul, what kind of seeing remains possible beyond thought? In the 11th century, Al-Ghazali stood at the summit of learning. His mastery of theology, law, and philosophy made him one of the greatest scholars of his time. Yet at that height, certainty collapsed. He saw that every proof rested on another assumption, and that reason could not prove its own reliability. He did not fall into ignorance. He fell into awareness of the limits of intellect. He realized that thought can describe what appears, but it cannot guarantee that appearance corresponds to truth. This crisis did not destroy his faith. It purified it. When intellect fails to know what grounds it, what remains to be trusted? You depend on the mind to orient you. You trust its order as a sign of truth. Yet Al-Ghazali warned that the intellect's greatest deception is its confidence in itself. It mistakes the ability to organize for the ability to comprehend. The mind arranges perceptions into systems. It names, compares, and measures, but it cannot explain why perception exists at all. It governs the content of experience while ignoring the condition that allows experience to occur. It builds frameworks to secure meaning, yet every framework presupposes an unexamined ground. You start to see that thought may control appearance, while remaining blind to reality. If the mind defines everything you know, what defines the mind itself? Al-Ghazali distinguished two forms of knowing. The first is conceptual, mediated through thought, language, and reasoning. The second is direct, immediate awareness unmediated by interpretation. Philosophers, he said, often mistake the first for the second. They speak about reality rather than from it. Conceptual knowing produces explanations. Direct knowing is presence itself. The first belongs to the mind, the second to the soul. He called the latter mrifa, recognition, not deduction. You begin to reflect. When you say, I understand, do you mean you possess an idea, or that you stand in awareness itself? If truth cannot be spoken or demonstrated, how is it recognized at all? You begin to realize that knowing is not possession, but participation. The soul, said Al-Ghazali, is not an object among objects, but the very condition that allows perception to exist. To seek the soul as something seen is to miss that it is the seeing itself. When the mind stops reaching, awareness begins to recognize its own presence. Al-Ghazali called this mushahada, direct witnessing. It is not achieved through reasoning but through purification of attention. The restless mind tries to grasp. The witnessing mind allows. You start to sense that the one who seeks and the one who is sought are not two. If the soul is the witness, what remains for the mind to find? Al-Ghazali taught that consciousness endures while every mental state changes. Thoughts arise, feelings fluctuate, judgments form and dissolve, yet awareness itself remains constant. It observes the entire sequence without alteration. He pointed out that this witnessing cannot be divided or analyzed because it is the basis of analysis itself. The mind belongs to the realm of movement. Awareness belongs to the realm of permanence. You reflect on this distinction, the changing and the changeless, the seen and the seer. If awareness never changes while the mind changes endlessly, which one truly defines who you are? Al-Ghazali's path was not denial of intellect, but its purification. He said the mind becomes clear only when freed from attachment to its own productions, its theories, arguments, and self-defenses. Knowledge that serves the ego conceals reality. Knowledge freed from self-interest reveals it. Through disciplined reflection and inner withdrawal, he reached a knowing not dependent on reasoning. He called it illumination of the heart, not emotion, but awareness unobstructed by thought, that you begin to see that truth is not built by reasoning. It is unveiled when reasoning becomes transparent. If truth is uncovered, not created, what kind of effort leads to discovery? You begin to meet the limit of thinking. Every conclusion generates another question. Every argument leans on what it cannot justify. Al-Ghazali reached this point and did not resist it. He allowed the intellect to surrender, not to confusion, but to awareness itself. He wrote that certainty dawns when reason admits its boundary. The mind does not lose power. It returns to its proper place. It serves rather than rules. You start to sense the quiet strength of surrender. When the intellect no longer claims mastery, it begins to reflect truth rather than distort it. When thought releases control, does understanding end or begin? In Al-Ghazali's realization, when the mind becomes pure of self-assertion, it becomes transparent. Awareness no longer looks through the mind but is the mind. The knower and the known collapse into one act of recognition. This is not mystical imagery, but a transformation of understanding. The observer ceases to stand apart from what is observed, knowing and being together. Thought no longer functions as representation, but as expression of presence. You begin to understand why Al-Ghazali called this the seeing of the soul. It is not perception of another reality. It is the unveiling of the only reality there has ever been. When the witness sees itself, what remains unseen? You now see that the mind was never meant to capture the soul, only to reveal its clarity. The intellect finds perfection not by extending itself, but by resting in what cannot be surpassed. For Al-Ghazali, this was not withdrawal from thought, but harmony within it. When thought no longer resists awareness, understanding becomes effortless. Knowledge turns from accumulation to recognition. In that stillness, truth is no longer something to reach. It simply is. The mind that once sought becomes silent, not in absence, but in fulfillment. You realize that the mind that sees the soul was always the soul perceiving through mind. What once looked outward now abides within itself. Al-Ghazali's insight was not abstract. He said every discipline, law, philosophy, devotion must begin from this awareness. Without it, knowledge serves pride. With it, knowledge becomes worship. To live by this seeing is to act without attachment to results, to think without claiming ownership of thought. The mind becomes an instrument of truth, not its imitator. You begin to recognize that clarity is not found by seeking more answers, but by seeing from the place where no question remains. How differently would life unfold if thinking became a form of remembrance rather than control? You return to the opening question. The mind that sought the soul now sees that it was never separate. The seeker was the sought. The knower was the known. Al-Ghazali's hidden teaching is that the intellect's highest act is to bow before what cannot be contained in it. When it does, truth is not attained. It is revealed as always present. You no longer need to look beyond awareness to find what awareness is. The mind has fulfilled its purpose. Thought rests in being. There is no division left to heal, no distance left to cross. Only understanding itself, still, complete, awake.